Hi, Dr. Yass here. And in this video, I'm going to change directions just a little. Usually talk about specific areas of pain or specific diagnoses relating to pain or other symptoms. And I figured I would just do a little bit of a change up. The Yass Method has promoted for almost 3 decades that in more than 98% of cases, the cause of pain or other symptoms is muscular, which means that the only way to resolve those symptoms and achieve full functional capacity is to gain strength in all the appropriate muscles. The way the system works is that you get a session, whether it's in person or Yass Method Zoom session, an evaluation is performed. If it is confirmed that the cause is muscular, the specific muscles responsible for the symptoms is identified. And then the individual goes on and performs a specific grouping of exercises that specifically strengthen the muscles responsible for the symptoms. Now, I have found that when I'm doing the sessions, that the emphasis of the session is on how precise I can get the individual to perform the exercise, because ultimately, if we are trying to isolate individual muscles, typically 3 to 4, to resolve symptoms and achieve full function, we have to make sure that the exercise is performed in a way that that muscle is in fact being isolated and having it adapt to resistance. That's how you make the muscle stronger. So a lot of times I'm spending a lot of time on the preciseness of the exercise, and I try to hit these specific global processes or principles of strengthening, but it doesn't get the extent of focus that I really think is very, very important. So let's say that maybe you're just having some dysfunction. Maybe you haven't even reached the point of having pain or altered sensation. Maybe you just have difficulty going upstairs or walking a certain distance, or standing for a while, or kneeling down, or reaching for something. You just find that you're having levels of dysfunction, and you have come to the realization that you require strength to improve your ability to perform these activities. I wanted to point out, to me, what are 5 critical principles of the Yass Method that I simply just don't see anywhere else, whether it's in any type of medical specialty or in the fitness industry. I feel that these 5 principles are being left out. And that's why when I go to the gym to work out myself, it just appears to me that people aren't benefiting from the time that they're putting in, because these 5 principles are not integral to what they're doing. So I thought it'd be really cool to do one video just on these key principles of how to get strong. It doesn't matter what muscle you're working. It doesn't matter what exercise you're doing. These are principles, overriding principles, that allow a person to get strong, make muscles be able to perform activity and achieve full functional capacity, or even higher levels of functional capacity if that's what you're looking for. So let's just go through 5 Yass Method principles to get strong. Number 1, this is a whopper, and I just feel like people don't recognize this, so I really wanted to hit home. Resistance grows strength, not performing the exercise. So I watch people in a gym and I see them doing exercises, and the resistances they're using are benign, minimal. If I said, could you do 100 repetitions, I'm quite confident they can. And I think it's because of the premise that they think performing the exercise makes you stronger. If you do a bicep curl, then your bicep's going to get stronger. If you do a military press, your deltoid's going to get stronger. If you do a squat, your quad is going to get stronger. That is completely false. The purpose of performing the exercise is to isolate the particular muscle. Every muscle moves a joint in one direction. So if we want to strengthen a particular muscle, we have to move that joint in one direction that muscle moves, right? That's the way it works. So if we're going to do a bicep curl, we're going to flex the elbow. If we're going to do a squat, we're going to do some sort of knee extension and flexion, bending and straightening the knee. So that simply allows you to isolate that muscle. So it's the muscle performing the exercise, but that doesn't make the muscle stronger. What makes the muscle stronger is causing the muscle to adapt to greater and greater resistances. I'll say it again. The exercise does not create strength. The exercise isolates the individual muscle you're trying to strengthen so it can be put in a position so it can adapt to greater and greater resistances. That's what causes strength to develop. That's what makes muscle bigger. That's what improves the ability of the muscle to perform function. This, I believe, is just not understood. And without this, I need you to really appreciate, you can't get stronger. If you're not pushing up your resistances, progressing your resistances, and you're simply doing the exercise because you think the exercise is what makes you stronger, with all due respect, you are not going to get stronger. Muscles grow based on the resistances they have to push against. There's a linear relationship between strength and mass. If you increase strength 10%, you increase mass 10%. Okay? So the first big one, resistance grows muscle, both strength and muscle, not performing the exercise. Okay? Perfect technique includes moving the resistance and stabilizing the body. And what I'm referring to here is that I think that I see a lot of people who kind of have a rough idea of how to move one joint in one direction, but they're doing it in ways where they're highly unstable. So the classic one, let's talk about the bicep curl. And we see the person and they take the barbell and they're standing and they're putting it in front of them. And they're kind of swaying back and forth and jerking around. And there's a tremendous amount of momentum developed by swinging, and they're getting a lot of hip extension from it. And so in doing the exercise in a way where the person isn't optimally stable, you're not allowing the muscle to create its optimal force. So every muscle has a stable side and every muscle has a mobile side. And quite simply, the mobile side of the muscle moves towards the stable side of the muscle. That's how the muscle shortens and creates force. So if we're talking about doing a bicep curl, the mobile side is the lower arm, the forearm moving towards the shoulder, and the bicep attaches at the shoulder. So we would want to stabilize the shoulder. So you would have to say, what's the optimal position for someone to be for the shoulder to be stabilized? Well, that would be seated in a perfectly upright position. It is that understanding that allows the shoulder to be locked into place so that the bicep can pull off of it to move the elbow. It's not enough to understand how to cause the muscle to contract. The better you understand how to stabilize the stable side of the muscle, the greater the opportunity to cause the muscle to be able to pull with greater force, right? The way to understand this in a kind of simple way is that, let's say you're standing and you find that you could use a 40-pound dumbbell and you're doing a bicep curl. If I suddenly put you on ice, do you think you could do the 40-pound dumbbell? The answer would be clearly not. You'd be so unstable that you wouldn't be anchored to the ground, thereby allowing the stable side of the muscle to be stabilized so that the mobile side of the muscle could pull off the stable side. That's kind of an example. So I see people and they're doing, say, a bicep curl, and they do it on, they're leaning back on an inclined bench, and they're doing the standing barbell curl, and they're just doing all these things. and they're not sticking to the optimal concept, which is what is the singular exercise that allows the stable side of a muscle to be locked in place optimally so that the mobile side of the muscle can be able to pull off the stable side and create its greatest resistance. Okay? So there's always two sides to an exercise. There's the pulling or pushing of the resistance, and then the stabilizing of the body so that the greatest amount of resistance can be pulled or pushed. So we want to be looking at that. It's very, very important. If you're looking to get strong, these are all critical factors that, if not followed, is probably impeding your ability to get strong. Now, this one I think is kind of interesting. Again, I don't think people understand this, and you would have to have some understanding of physiology to understand this. Rest counts between sets. So another thing I see is people in the gym, and they'll do a set and they'll wait 20, 30 seconds, and then they'll try to do another set and they'll wait 20, 30 seconds, and they'll do another set. And they again, I just feel like what I see people doing is just, they're not focused. They don't have the understanding that allows them to focus and maximize the effort that they're putting in, which I think is the reason they're going to the gym, is to get stronger. So I just feel like they just don't have that excess understanding that would help them. So just a brief understanding of this is the fact that every time a muscle contracts, a byproduct of muscular contraction is lactic acid. Lactic acid impedes the ability of the muscle to contract. As the muscle is contracting in an exercise, the microcirculation is closed, so the lactic acid can be removed. So after you complete the exercise, that's when the circulation opens, blood comes into the muscle and allows the lactic acid to be removed. And in doing so, allows you to then regain the full amount of muscle mass available to push against the resistance. If you do not take enough time in between your sets, you still have lactic acid in your muscle, which means all the muscle mass that you have is not totally available. Well, if it's not totally available, how do you push the maximum amount of resistance that you're trying to push? You can't. So in not taking enough time between sets, you're actually impeding your ability to get strong because you simply are not making the maximum amount of muscle mass available to push resistance. So I generally, when I'm treating people, tell people that they should wait about a minute in between each set. You got to allow that lactic acid to deplete if you want to have all your muscle mass available when you're trying to push against resistance so that you can get stronger in the shortest period of time. Just to put it into perspective, after 35 years, I put on 60 pounds of muscle. I lift exceptionally heavy. I probably wait somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes in between each set as I've gotten to the very heavy sets towards the end of any particular exercise. I have to know that all the lactic acid is depleted, so I have all my muscle mass, because at the level of resistance I use, if I didn't do that, I am potentially in a position to strain myself, and I want to make sure that I don't. So I am very cognizant of how long I wait in between the sets that I'm performing when performing strength training. This is another one that, again, I don't think people understand. I hear people talk about they work out 6 days a week or 7 days a week. I know physical therapists tell people to work out 7 days a week, do their strengthening. It's foolhardy. It's actually defeatist and, again, potentially dangerous. The healing phase of training is just as important as the training itself. And what this refers to is the fact that when you are doing the strength training, you're not actually making muscle mass. You're causing micro tears in muscle, right? You're actually causing small tears. You're breaking the muscle down. It is during the next 24 to 48 hours after the completion of the bout of exercise that an inflammatory response ensues and muscle is healed with muscle. So during that next 24 to 48 hours after the bout of exercise, if you were to try to strengthen that muscle during its inflammatory phase, there is a very, very high probability you're going to strain that muscle. So you have to recognize that if you're working on a specific muscle, and you try to strengthen it, you're going to have to give it at least 24 to 48 hours before you strengthen it again, which is why I generally promote the idea that anyone doing an exercise for a particular body part do it no more than 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. That's giving it that nice 48-hour period for the muscle to heal, which then prepares it and makes it ready to be in a position to adapt to the next time that resistance is going to be applied. And it allows, without the healing, the potential for straining increases dramatically. You really do have to give the muscle as much time to rest as, in terms of focus, as the actual breaking down of the muscle during the exercise phase. So please keep that in mind. A healing process has to occur if you're causing the muscle to break down. Again, if you're following all these principles, if you're using good resistance, if you're using good technique in stabilizing the stabilized side of the muscle, if you're taking plenty of rest in between your sets and you're making sure that that gives you all your muscle mass available, that's how you push the most amount of resistance. So that's the next phase, is you got to give it the healing time. And finally, if it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, you're not. And it's just incredible. I go in and I see these people and they just kind of seem to be going through the motions. And I just wonder, do they understand that if they're not applying some level of force, meaning that they're pushing enough resistance that it requires exertion, then you have to assume you're probably not going to grow muscle. When you're using a substantial amount of resistance, that means you're going to have to push pretty hard. And so you might end up after that bout of exercise huffing and puffing. And when you're doing the technique, you have this incredible focus, because with the right resistance, you have to make sure your technique is proper, or there's the potential for straining, right? So you can't think, especially if you're in pain and you're using strengthening to resolve your pain, you can't think you're going to make this happen if you don't feel like you're doing something. If you don't feel like you're putting effort in, I honestly have to say, you really probably can't assume that you're going to be able to resolve that pain or that level of dysfunction. You got to feel like you're focused. You got to feel like you're putting enough effort in terms of the resistance, in terms of making sure you do the technique properly. And if you're doing that, then there's probably a really good chance that you're going to be able to achieve your goals. And again, if it's that you're trying to resolve pain, great. If it's that you're trying to improve function, great. If it's an aesthetic reason, a health-related reason, to me, as far as I'm concerned, is the idea of strengthening is, in fact, the fountain of youth. I have been the biggest proponent of this. I personally have put on 60 pounds of muscle over 35 years. I feel great. I feel empowered. I feel I can do whatever I want. I have no indications of any type of disease, systemic breakdown, because I believe 100% it's due to my strengthening. In terms of, you see all these things on TV about diet and Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and Nutrisystems. What's the component that's missing of that, which is why they really never work, is the strength training component, which actually builds muscle mass. Muscle is living tissue, and that means there's more energy required to keep it alive. Therefore, you have to burn more energy. The energy source for metabolism is fat. So if there's a weight-related issue you're trying to get stronger, by all means, you want to do strength training to increase what is known as your resting metabolic rate, the amount of calories you're burning at rest. And strength training basically is the only mechanism, the only type of exercise that allows that to occur. So that's another benefit of getting stronger. So, all right, so this is 5 principles, Yass principles of for getting stronger and improving strength and improving muscle mass and reducing symptom and improving the function. So if you have any questions, or if you want to just contact me to discuss your particular issue, you could do so. At the bottom here is my email, drmitch@mitchellyass.com. You want to learn a little bit more about the Yass Method, or if you want to schedule a Yass Method Zoom session, by all means, you could do it. Here's the website. www.livewithoutpains.com. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like my YouTube channel, Dr. Mitchell Yass, please subscribe to get notifications when new videos are added. For now, this is Dr. Mitchell Yass, wishing you a pain-free, fully functional life. Bye-bye for now.